Morning, everyone. Hope everyone is well. Good morning, Rachel, Peter, and Neil. Today's learning is dedicated in memory of Leah Bas Faivel, Rav Yaakov Tzvi ben David Aryeh, Sivia Bas Mordechai, Avram ben David Slavin, Shom ben Yisrael Maris, Parafegel, Bas Ben Baruch, Shalom ben Eleli ben Bas Faivel, Promesh Shoshana Bas Yaakov Shmuel, Kela Bela Bas Henach Yirmiyahu Yechiva ben Moshe Eliezer, Sarah Malka Bas Ben Yomin, as well as the Yort sites for today are as follows. Nathan ben Mordechai Austin, Gila Bas Avram Bloch, Kalman ben Michal Goldbart, Nachum ben Yosef Jacobs, Rosia Bas Chaim Silva, Gershon ben Hyman Crystal, Shmuel ben Eliel Simpson, Shmuel, we did say, didn't we? Gila Bas Avram Bloch. We wish Mervyn Bloch long life as well. So, we start today a new pathway. We know that we are studying the 10 pathways. Today we start a new one, which is the pathway of Mitzvot. I've skipped over the pathway of learning Torah because I think we have done this in a different guise before, and therefore we move straight on to this. Let me read you from Rabbi Sachs's work. Good morning, everyone that is still joining us. Judaism's genius, said Rabbi Sachs, was to take high ideals and translate them into life by simply daily deeds. The way of mitzvot, acting in accordance with God's will, we do not just contemplate truth, we live it. And this really, I think, is the fundamental difference and distinction between us and other faiths. If you were to ask other faiths about virtues, principles, they will say that they feel it, they believe it, they think it, but they don't live it. It's a fundamental difference. Says Rabbi Sachs, we don't contemplate creation by studying theoretical physics. We live it by making a blessing over what we eat and drink. Acknowledging God as the creator of all we enjoy. We don't think about our responsibility for the environment. We keep Shabbat, setting a limit 1 day in 7 to our exploitation of the world. We don't just study Jewish history. On the fasts and festivals, we reenact it. Truth becomes real when it becomes deed. That is how we transform the world. There are those who see the world as it is and accept it. That is the Stoic way. There are those that see the world as it is and flee from it. That is the mystic monastic way. But there are those who see the world as it is and change it. That is the Jewish way. So how do we change the world? Well, we change the world through the mitzvot, the holy deeds that bring a fragment of heavens down to the earth. Remember the ladder? Jacob stood at the bottom having that great vision for humanity of a ladder going up to heaven, to the stars in heaven, and there are angels going up and down. Well, that very much is the blueprint for us to be able to live our lives and elevate this world. Every mitzvah, he says, is a miniature act of redemption. It turns something secular into something holy. When we keep kashrut, we turn food for the body into substance for the soul. When we keep Shabbat, we sanctify time, making space in our life to breathe and give thanks, celebrating what we have instead of striving for what we do not yet have. When we observe the festivals, we sanctify history by turning it into personal memory, forging a connection between our ancestors' past and our present. When we keep the laws of family purity, we turn a physical relationship into a sacred bond of love. He concludes, the mitzvot bring God into our lives through the intricate choreography of a life lived in accordance with God's will. They are the poetry of the everyday, turning life into a sacred work of art. Mitzvot teach us that faith is active, not passive. It is a matter of what we do, not just what happens to us. Performing a mitzvah, we come close to God, becoming his partner in the work of creation. Every mitzvah is the window in the wall separating us from God. Every mitzvah lets God's light flow into the world. Let me just pick up on a couple of those last statements. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful synopsis by Rabbi Sachs. So the idea, when it comes to performance of mitzvot, he says, we become partners in the work of creation. God made this world, and he made it intently with the idea of it being incomplete. He made us imperfect. And the idea is the same way that we go about hopefully becoming that little bit better and perfecting ourselves. So we are meant to go about perfecting the world. Therefore, when we eat something, we make a blessing. Whatever we are doing, we try to elevate it, infuse it with a sanctity, and therefore we join and reunite the physical with the spiritual world the way it was before creation. That is what this life is all about. And therefore we become partners. If we act in a godly fashion with God, we become partners in his creation. It isn't something that should seem daunting. It should be something that we all feel is exhilarating. Imagine every single thing that you do counts. Every single action matters. Even when nobody is looking, nobody is watching, there's not going to be any awards, no acknowledgement. It doesn't matter. It counts just as much. Because my job, and we mentioned in the previous pathway about when we discussed about prayer, the three different realms in which we operate between us and ourselves, between us and our fellow human being, and between us and God. And my task between me and God and between me and man, me and myself, is to ensure that I do what is asked of me. And as much as I am godly, I can spread that godliness to the world at large. It is the most incredible idea, I think, to know that everything you do matters and counts. We'll move on a tiny bit. Okay, obviously, it's a lot to take in. He goes on, and I'm skipping a bit because I'm trying to take the salient points and the highlights for you. So when we think about mitzvot, mitzvot means commandments, but actually the word also mitzvah means that we are doing the will of God. And there are different categories of mitzvot that we don't necessarily think about on a daily basis. There are mishpatim, judgments. So an example of a judgment would be don't steal, don't kill. It's something that is in every secular society, originating from the Torah, of course, but it is something that is rational. You could not have a society that is able to function if it did not have these laws, right? So category number one are the mishpatim, the judgments, right? These include all the detailed provisions for civil and criminal law. The idea of reciprocity in society. We give and then we get, right? If you cannot have trading, you cannot have cooperation if there wasn't a reciprocity. This is category number one. Then there is category number two, which are called the chukim, the statutes. Such laws are, for example, let's say eating milk and meat. We're not allowed to eat them together. The laws of shatnez, for example, are something that we don't understand, or mixing wool and linen. So even though we on face value understand them and accept them as not having any rationale, there are some that do suggest that there is a rationale, and therefore we are, to the best of our abilities, meant to try to fathom and understand them. So, for example, even wool and linen, and the idea of klaim, which is that we're not allowed to crossbreed, is the idea that if God made things in individual species, the idea is that it was meant to function and to be a creative force in the world on its own. If God wanted a crossbreed, he would have made a crossbreed. And there are many other examples. So that is section number two. The third category, and we're not going to have time to go into it now, are what's called edut, testimonies. And they have to do with our identity as part of our people and as part of its story. So, for example, when it comes to Pesach, we read the Haggadah and we eat matzah. We relive our shared national experience. And Shavuot, we relive and reenact the giving of the Torah, divine revelation, becoming God's chosen people, etc., etc. So these are the three main categories, and it's important for us to deepen our appreciation and our understanding as to the nature of these three categories, so that we understand why we are doing things. As much as we can, we are a questioning nation that is curious and is meant to be searching for meaning, and therefore we leave no stone unturned to try to fathom and understand what it is that we are doing and why we are doing it. Of course, there comes a point where a finite being cannot understand an infinite being, but as much as we can, God wants us to look and to search for meaning. We'll pause there for today, and we will continue now with Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even as I walk in the valley of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You set a table before me in the presence of my adversaries. You anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord for the length of days. Continue with the memorial prayer. Adon Elamim Zocho Es Nishmais Nathan ben Avram Austin, Gila bas Abraham Bloch, Kalman ben Michal Goldbach, Nathan ben Yosef Jacobs, Rosia bas Chaim Silva, Gershon ben Hyman Crystal, Shmuel ben Eliyahu Simpson, Leah bas Fiver, Rav Yaakov Tzvi ben David Aryeh, Zivia bas Mordechai, Avram ben David Slavin, Shalom ben Yisrael Morris, Tzipora Fegel ben Baruch, Shalom ben Elili ben Abbas Bible from Rosh Hashanah bas Yaakov Shmuel, Caleb ben Abbas Hinach, Yirmiyahu Yechivel ben Moshe Eliezer, Sam Bakal bas ben Yamin, Shalchu li olamam began Eden Teimenu Chasam lachim balarachamim, Yasti rein v'seisa kanafam l'lamim, v'yetzavas achais nishmasam adonai nachlasam v'yanuchu b'shlam shkavam v'nomar amen. Lastly, a Shlema prayer. Mervyn, I don't know if you heard before, we wish you long life. I know that you have yours like today. Misha Berach Havaseinu, Avram Yisrael Yaakov, Moshe Aaron, David Shlomo, V'yivach Rapesach Chaylim, Babu Shanu Mispalim, Babu Ram, V'yizchazak HaShbaruch Hu Yimah L'rachim Aleichem, Lachma L'Pasam, V'yishlach Lem, V'yishlem L'Shemaim L'chol L'Reim B'Soch, Shach L'Yisrael, Refuah HaNefesh V'Sakov, Hashavak Zmakarev Amar, Amen. Delighted to hear this morning. I think that Jonathan Pollard is now free and has moved to Israel. I think that's the news that I caught very, very briefly this morning. But if that is true, then I'm sure that we are all overjoyed after so much of his life that he has paid such a heavy price for. We wish him and his family well. In the meantime, we wish everyone to keep safe, keep well, look after yourselves, and look forward to seeing you, please God, tomorrow, same time, same place. All the very best. Take care.